Hey everybody, welcome back to part 2 of my infertility story. The first part, if you haven't seen it, it goes over finding out that I have PCOS and then also going 3 rounds on Famera. So I'll have that video in the description or at the end of this for you to go and check out. So we left off with our next step of our infertility story to go on to a HSG test. So the easiest way to kind of explain an HSG test is that it's like an x-ray on your uterus and with an injected dye that goes in to show if there's any blockage or clog or anything in your fallopian tubes. And that could also be part of why your eggs are not getting down or why sperm isn't going up. So my doctor scheduled me for my HSG test to be in November. She also had me start taking metformin. I was very hesitant of taking metformin just because of all the stories I've heard. I was not looking forward to taking it. I didn't know how my body was going to react. The first night I took it, I was up all night in the bathroom just getting cleaned out. It was not fun, and it was not fun. But it was only that night. And then for the next 2 weeks, I had absolutely no appetite. Like, I could not eat. And I was also keto, so I was also limited on what to eat. I'm also a picky eater, so that doesn't help. But even to this day, I can't do ham and cheese roll-ups because I tried eating it during those 2 weeks that I didn't have an appetite, and it just made me sick. It was gross. But after 2 weeks, I was back to normal, fine, never had an issue with metformin. So my doctor had me on metformin, and then I think around November 11 of 2017, I was to take my HSG test. I let Jareth know, of course, but I didn't have him come with me because I was still in the state of mind that this was all supposed to be a surprise for him, and this is my job to do this stuff to get me working. And I'm also really deep in depression at this point. So I am sitting in the waiting room at the hospital, and then they call me, and it's time to get switched into the gown. And I just remember the room being very cold and big, and I just felt really alone. Like, I think it was about that time when I walked into the room, it started to hit me, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this alone? I really wanted Jareth with me, but it was too late, and I was really nervous, and I was really scared, because this is going to tell us if something's wrong. Like, I might have to have surgeries next, and I was scared, and I didn't know what to do. I feel like I was a robot, just doing what they were telling me to do. I remember laying down on kind of like a bed, and there's this big machine dome thing that like comes over your midsection. And I just started panicking. This thing comes over that's what takes your x-rays. And I was scared. And I started crying because it was very scary, and I was doing this all alone, and I didn't have anybody with me. The nurses there held my hands and were telling me that it's okay. And I should have done this with Jareth. I should have had him come with me. This thing's over you so that they can see your uterus. And then they inject the dye inside, and that was painful. Because it's just like, it's a burst of fluid going up, and it was very sticky. Like honey, sap, molasses feeling, and It was awful, but getting that injected in you, that was the painful part. And it only lasts on the screen because they had like a monitor so that they can see in your uterus, and I could also see at the same time. But you can see it kind of light up and go out to your fallopian tubes, to your ovaries. And what you want to see is you want to see the liquid go kind of like burst out by your ovaries, meaning that there's nothing blocking it. And I remember I didn't know that your ovaries kind of float because I had my ovaries here. I always you picture they're like this, but my left one was way up here. And I was like, what on earth? That just amazed me. But the radiologist, he said everything looks good. It's pretty good. And of course your doctor will go over the results with you, but just from what I'm seeing, everything looks perfectly normal. And I remember after I got dressed and all cleaned up and everything, and I go home waiting for Jared to get home. And when I'm waiting for him to get home, I'm just thinking, I'm just upset. Because if everything is looking great, why am I not getting pregnant? What's wrong then? I'm just angry at me, my body. I'm angry at the world. I'm angry at God. And I was like, if everything's looking great, then what's going on? Why am I being punished and not getting pregnant? Why take this away from me? So Jared comes home and I've had it. My emotions have exploded. And he, of course, knows I was depressed. He was seeing it clearly, but we hadn't done anything yet. So I told him how the HSG test went, and I expressed my feelings that I was so angry and sad at the same time, that why isn't this working? They said everything looks great, but then why are we still not getting pregnant? And I told him I don't know what else to do. I told him everything finally. I told him that I need help. I need you. I need you to just hold me and tell me that things will be okay because I can't do this anymore. I felt so alone. I know I say that so much, but that's the simplest way I could say it. I felt broken. And I felt like I was taking his dream away too, because I know he wanted to be a dad. And it might not happen. Will you still love me? I was so depressed. So after a long heart-to-heart talk and a couple of nights crying in his arms in bed, we were finally kind of on the same page about my emotions. I was so done with everything, but I didn't want to give up, but I was done. After every single month, you get your hopes up. It's like, oh, it's the smiley face on the ovulation kit. It means hopefully something's good. Maybe it'll be this time. And then 2 weeks later, no. Okay, next month. No. And no. And no again. And more. Being told no so much after something you've dreamt for so long, it puts a big toll on your heart. On your heart, your self-esteem, everything. So I called the doctor after the HSG test, and she said that the test looks great. So the next steps that we could do is we could do another 3 rounds of Famera since I am ovulating off of Famera. And after those 3 rounds, if you're still not pregnant, we can do an IUI. And then we'll also continue to do metformin. So the new thing that we're doing right now is adding metformin to the list. And what I've seen or read about after HSG tests, it kind of like cleans out your uterus and fallopian tubes and everything. So some people were able to get pregnant afterwards. Starting December of 2017, I was to start my first round of second set of 3 of Famera. I think I ovulated early at the beginning of December, and then 2 weeks later, I was not pregnant. And then I ended up doing like the second, I had my cycle like twice in December. So I did round 1 and 2 of Famera all in December. And then by the end of December, I was done. I was like, this is not working. We've done Famera 5 times now, and it's still not working. I'm still not getting pregnant. I'm ready for the next step. So I called my nurse and I told her I'm ready to do an IUI. So now we're in the beginning of January of 2018, and we're waiting for my cycle to start again in January for me to do my 6th round of Famera and to also do an IUI. And I was pretty excited because now we're on to the next step. New set of hope is sunk in. So we had an insurance issue when getting my meds. Of course, it had to happen the 6th time I'm taking these meds that we come up with an issue. Being it there was the first of the year, insurance updated and stuff like that, and my pharmacy didn't have the updated information, and insurance didn't go through on my meds, and I needed to take that meds starting that night. So I was starting to panic. So I told the pharmacist, or asked the pharmacy, okay, how much do the meds cost without insurance? And they were saying it was like $250. And we did not have that money in our bank account at that time. And so I was starting to panic because it just felt like the world was against me. I'm not going to get to have my babies, and it's because of insurance. I'm not going to be able to get the meds I need to ovulate to get pregnant, hopefully. It was very stressful. About 2 hours later, we figured something out with the pharmacy, and I was able to get the meds and continue with the cycle, and we got insurance figured out later on. February 1st, I ovulated on cycle day 13, which was early again, and things were starting to look up. I called the nurse because I was supposed to call when I ovulated, and within that 24-hour period, I was to go in to do the IUI. But I couldn't get a hold of my nurse, and I started to panic again. I was like, what do you mean? I called twice and she wasn't in. And I was starting to panic because I was feeling like I'm not going to get to do this. I'm going to have to wait another month to do this again. And I can't do it. I can't do this. I'm listening to the prompts, and they're saying, like, in case of emergency, go to the front desk or press 0 to get to the front desk. And I'm like, oh, this is emergency to me. Does this count? So I get to the front desk, and we scheduled it for Friday, February 2nd at 9:00 a.m. And then after I was done with work on the 1st of February, I was to go in to get a sample cup for my husband to give his sample, because he has to do it an hour before I was to do the IUI, because they have to wash it and clean it and get all the good swimmers prepped and ready for the IUI. It was stressful. Now the morning of my first IUI, and at this point I had lost 70 pounds since the beginning of this journey. So we were very nervous and excited, and also kind of at the point where, like, if this doesn't work, I don't know how much more I can take kind of feeling. But you know deep down that you still don't want to give up, though. It's like, even though you are exhausted and holding on by half a thread, you still will not give up because you want this so bad. So I go in, and I think I only had to strip down bottom half. And I saw my doctor for the first time in months. And she said that the sperm looks good and ready to go. And I had laid on the table, and they inserted the goodies. Said you can just lay there for a little bit, take it easy the next day or two, and then 2 weeks, take a test and let me know if you're pregnant or not. And she said that the HSG test looked great. So then I asked her, like, what's my chances of this working? And of course, they don't really give you an answer. And she just says that being that the HSG test looked great, this is just unexplained infertility. And I think that made me so mad. I was like, unexplained? That doesn't... What are we supposed to do now? What am I supposed to do with that answer? I was so angry at this point, guys, with everything. And so I'm laying there waiting for my time to get up, just thinking over and over. I was like, unexplained infertility? What am I supposed to do? Now, I was just so... Ugh. About 2 weeks later, not quite, it was February 14th on Valentine's Day. And of course, the thoughts of like, oh, that'd be so great to just surprise him. But I was like, no, I still have 3 more days before I'm supposed to take the test. And my husband and I don't really celebrate Valentine's Day because our dating anniversary is a month later. And Valentine's Day is already crazy busy. Everything's expensive. It's hard to go out and eat. So we always just celebrate our date anniversary anyways. So we don't do anything on Valentine's Day. And I remember going to the bookstore because we love going to the bookstore. And I'm looking at the infertility books, of course, and reading up on IUI with stats and statistics and stuff like that. And I wanted to buy the book. And I remember telling my husband, I was like, can we get this one? It's got some more information I can read on. He's like, how about we just wait after these 2 weeks to see if this worked or not before we go and buy the book? And I'm like, fine. And I'm just like contemplating back and forth. It's like, well, technically it's not the morning, so it's already too late to take the pregnancy test. I'm like, 3 days away. Can I wait 3 days? It's like, but everything would work so cool if I surprised him today if I was pregnant. Because he had no idea at all. And we get home, and it's like 6 o'clock at night. And Jareth is excited playing with his computer because he builds computers. And he just bought some computer parts. So he's sidetracked. And I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to take the test. Whatever. So I'm expecting to see the famous negative, as I've always seen my past 2 years, 3 years. And I remember I'm taking the test, and I'm just about to put it on the counter so it can do its 2 minutes. And then I saw this second line that everyone has talked about. Like, I'm not even onto the counter yet, and I already see this second line. Like, it's starting to show up. And I remember just not breathing. I'm like looking at this, like, what What does this mean? What? So I'm staring at this test on the counter in shock, still waiting for the 2 minutes to see if it disappears all of a sudden. But there's 2 lines. 2 lines. Yeah. Oh no. Oh. 2 lines. 2 babies. Yeah. So I sneak it back into our room and I pull out the onesie I've been waiting to give him. I bought this onesie when we just got married because I was saving it to tell him that we were pregnant. And I remember crying and holding this onesie, feeling like a failure that this baby's never gonna come. And I couldn't walk in baby sections or anything like that because they weren't gonna happen. But I got to pull the onesie out. And I got the tests ready, and I got some tissue paper, and I wrote a cute little card. So I get the onesie and the 2 pregnancy tests with 2 lines on them, and I put them in a bag with the card. So I bring this package to him, and I'm like, Jareth, I got you something. And he's like, I didn't get you anything for Valentine's Day. I'm like, I know. You got me this phone case. I love it. I put a little bit more enthusiasm on the phone case. It was a cool phone case. I was like, here, this is just a surprise for you. So I was like, sit down and open it, okay? Just leave the computer alone. And so he sits down, he reads the card, and he's like, aw, you're so sweet, because I am. And then he pulls the onesie out, and he looks at it. I'm like, cute. And he puts it down, and then he opens the box that had the pregnancy test. And he looked at it, and then he really looked at it, and then he looked at me. He's like, what? Really? And I'm like, yes, really, we're pregnant. We're pregnant. So that's it. That's the end of my infertility story, but not saying necessarily that it is over. Because as we want to expand our family, I'm not sure what we're going to need to do. I'm still currently on the keto diet because it's the only diet that's been helping me, and because I still want to have more children, even though I have twins. Yes, I want more. But I don't know if we have to do another IUI, if we have to do Famera again. I'm not sure. I'm doing my part to try to hopefully make this easier on us next time. But I hope you guys were able to relate to this video and that it was able to help some of you. I'll see you guys later. Bye!